Hello there, welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to be talking about a popular phrase or expression that is used to diffuse polemics against Islam and particularly Allah's nature. And that would be the phrase, "It befits His Majesty," or "only what befits His Majesty." And you'll often hear this phrase when you're having a dialogue with a Muslim and you're asking questions particularly about the nature of Allah, particularly about Allah's body parts, His shin, His two right hands, His face, His foot, His eyes, etc. And the Muslim simply won't be able to tell you exactly how this is, but at the same time they'll want to affirm a literal interpretation of the text. So this comes from Surah 68, Ayah 42 in regards to His shin. There's also different hadith that talk about both His shin, His right hands, His face and His eyes, etc, etc. You can also find verses in the Quran that talk about His hands and His eyes. So they don't have a particular good way of explaining this. In fact, I would go as far as to say there is no sound reasoning that any Muslim, any da'i, any imam or sheikh can give you that can fully explain what they mean when they make these claims about Allah's body parts. There is none. In fact, if you actually look at it, there seems to be an argument within Islam at the moment between many different groups of Muslims who are trying to argue exactly how do we handle this information. You have Salafi Muslims who are intent on understanding this in a literal way, and you have other Muslims who are more Hanafi Muslims who are trying desperately to get away from this kind of thing because they know, in all fairness, it's ridiculous, it's funny. No one in their right mind is going to hold to the belief that God has body parts for all eternity as attributes. You are in effect saying that man, or what we understand of man, is somehow directly attached to Allah because Allah has those aspects. When you introduce the category of shin and you say that Allah has a shin, or at least He has something that belongs in that same category, it doesn't matter if it's a big shin, small shin, red, blue, grey, it doesn't matter what it is. As soon as you say that Allah has it, you've entered into this problem of associating Allah and His attributes, so His very nature, with creation. And of course, once you get down that path, you end up going against what is revealed in the Quran, and your religion contradicts itself. So what I want to do is I want to point out a few videos where this is used that I found, and I thought it'd be good to go through these videos and just dissect them a little bit to see exactly how this does not befit Allah is used, and we can kind of take it from there. So now we're going to watch some videos online that I found. One is from a sheikh and one is from a popular da'i at Speaker's Corner who is known for running. We are going to examine those videos and we're going to see exactly how the phrase "only befitting of Allah" is used. Okay, this is the first one. Let's have a look.
So how would we reply to them? Akhi, first of all, you don't need to reply to them. The people of innovation and al-ahwa, of desires and whims, those who follow their desires and whims, not the sharia. You do not waste your time replying to them. Yes, Sheikh, but they are truth seekers. No, they're not. They have a different mindset. They follow innovation, whims, and desires. Our Prophet told us, alayhi salatu wasalam, that this ummah will be divided into 73 sects. All of them are in hell except one. And this one is those who are following my footsteps and the footsteps of the companions. These people are not following the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, the Quran, in the Quran...
So I just want to pause it there, and I just want to point out that he's implying by saying that, by bringing up the fact there are 73 sects and only one of them is the true sect that's going to Jannah. He's implying that those who reject the literal interpretation of Allah's body parts, that Allah has a shin, the two right hands, and that these are literal, actual things, not just metaphors or expressions, he's implying that those people are not part of that one true group, and instead part of the 72 sects that are actually doomed to hellfire. So let's keep watching.
Allah tells us that this is a book that is clear in Arabic. So it's an Arabic book. And it was made clear so the Arabs understand it. And Allah tells us in this book that he has eyes, that he
I just want to jump in here. There is not anything clear about the Quran in Arabic. There are mysterious letters in many of the different surahs that are sort of like chapter headings or very beginnings of these chapters, and they comprise of Arabic script that no scholar, no person alive today understands what that is. It's really disingenuous to try and hold to the claim that the Quran is clear. There are many parts of the Quran that are intentionally written seemingly by, or at least according to Muhammad, by Allah, that just don't make any sense. And they don't seem as if they were ever intended to make sense. So when the Quran says that it's a clear book, it means that at best in the most loosest way you could possibly imagine. But of course, if it means it in a loose way, Muslims won't want to admit that because they have a very high view of the understanding of the Quran and the value of the text. So they force themselves into believing absurdities of just flat-out contradictions. On the one hand, the Quran is a clear book. On the other hand, there are parts of the Quran, such as Surah 3, Ayah 7, that say that it's not a clear book. There are mysterious letters. For example, I think in Surah 11, the very beginning of that surah has these mysterious letters. No scholar knows what it is. So Dr. Yasser Qadi has even written a book where he gives 12 different potential interpretations of what those letters even are. No one knows. The Quran is not a clear book.
He has a face, that he has two hands. Specifically, he did not say one hand or hands. He said two hands. He specified this so that there's no ambiguity of it being a metaphor. When I say I have a hand over you, means that I have a favor over you. So I use one hand. That's it. But when I say two hands, this cannot be a metaphor. To the Arabs, they know that these are two real hands. So the hadith says that Allah Azza wa Jal has fingers. The Quran says Allah has a shin. So when we come to all of these things, and these deviant people come and say, no, this is not true. Akhi, it's in black and white. It's in Arabic. Allah is telling us. The Prophet is telling us. No. Still, this is a metaphor.
It's black and white. Allah is telling us in Arabic. This is how much popular sheikhs, particularly of the Salafi school, will hold to this view, and they hold to those who reject it as deviants. That's such a wild claim, especially about something that's so obviously difficult to rationalize. There is no rational basis for thinking that God has literal body parts, especially when those body parts are body parts, right? They're part of the created order, and Allah is nothing like His creation. But Allah keeps comparing Himself to His creation. He forces the reader to take an anthropomorphic perspective on who He is. But why does Allah do that? There's no real logic. It's self-contradictory. It's kind of telling you two different things at the same time and not explaining how on earth you're meant to understand that. It'd be like if I said, I don't know, like I made a claim about something that I own, and I say, look, it's not like anything you can imagine. It's not like anything you can imagine. However, it is green. And then letting you wonder exactly how on earth you're meant to interpret that without having some literal sense of something green, because it isn't a metaphor, but at the same time not being able to say you have any understanding of what it is. Well, of course you do, you know it's green. But it's green in a way you don't know. Right, in which case, why did I tell you it was green then? I haven't conveyed any information. And if that's the case, if verses like Surah 68, Ayah 42 that talks about Allah's shin don't convey any meaning, there's no information there, it's just nonsense. It's like a puzzle, a riddle, something that you can't decipher because only Allah knows the answer. Well, then the Quran is not a clear book, because it has intentionally unclear verses in it, and hence the Quran is wrong.
Now, why would we even go down this road and talk to them? Such people don't deserve.
Why would we even talk to him? Why? This is I've seen this particular sheikh. I've seen him in quite a lot of videos. He seems quite popular. I think he's he's got his own TV show or something. But I really hope there are better sheikhs than this guy. But to be honest with you, after looking around, it doesn't seem like it. It seems that this is the uniform sort of Salafi position. If you're asked, just mock and ridicule anyone who asks, it's pretty bad. It's really, really that bad.
To even reply to them because they're deviant. So Stay and remain steadfast. Learn your religion. Abide by the Quran and the Sunnah. And there's a very, very beautiful book that I encourage everybody to study it, which is Al-Aqidat al-Wasitiyyah of Shaykh al-Islam bin Taymiyyah. It responds to all of their doubts in straightforward, قال الله قال الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام.
If that book responded to the doubts in a really clear, straightforward way, why would he not quote from that book? Why would he not simply give a rough summary? Like, oh, you guys, you have all these doubts because we hold that the Quran teaches that Allah has literal body parts. I don't know. Don't worry about it. This book has some answers. Let me just quickly summarize it for you. But he doesn't. It's the mark of someone who's either lying, intentionally being deceitful, or it's the mark of someone who's desperate and just doesn't want to talk about it anymore. End the conversation. There's a book. I can't explain it, I can't quote from it, but the book will solve all your answers. Next question. Okay, so this is the second video. This is from the Da'i Shamsi. Let's give this a watch.
Ibn Battah, rahimahullah ta'ala, from the Salaf, in his Ibana, he said, no, we accept the hadith that Allah descends, subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned, the way befits His Majesty. Allah descends to the lowest heaven, the way befits His Majesty, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a person might say, but if Allah descends, He's going to go for the third heaven, the fourth. No. The reason you are saying that, because you had to resemble Allah to His creation, that's why you are making those implications. Because you are comparing Allah to His creation. That's why the ulama of the Salaf said, كُلُّ مُعَطِّلْ مُشَبِّهِ. Every negator of Allah's attributes, he had to fall into resembling Allah to His creation. Because he had to resemble Allah to His creation, that's why he had to negate and distort the hadith of Allah's attributes.
Notice that immediately he starts saying, look, you had to compare Allah to His creation. You're the one doing that. And that's wrong. That's completely wrong. It's not us that are comparing Allah to His creation. It's Allah Himself who demands that we use anthropomorphic language to think about Him. It isn't humanity that came... Well, I mean, okay, Muhammad may have done it, but my point is that the Quran itself has clear words in it where it describes Allah in anthropomorphic ways. So the scripture itself is clear that that's the correct way of looking at it. You are called to think about Allah having a shin. But you're also told not to think about it. This is the irrational position that Muslims are in, and Muslims are trying desperately to get out of, I think, or at least a good part of them are, it seems. But again, if you're part of the Salafi tradition and you hold to this, and you hold to this without any exception, without any room for metaphorical language, and it is pure literal, then that's what you get. You get nonsense.
So we say, if a person say, would you do this and that? Say no. Allah descends the way befits His Majesty.
And there we have it. In the way that befits His Majesty. He isn't actually going to give you an explanation. He's just saying, nope, it's done in the way that we can't understand. It's beyond our comprehension. And therefore, problem solved. We don't need to think about it anymore. We don't need to give any rational arguments. We don't need to convince you of anything. We just need to remind you that as a Muslim, you believe in Allah, so deal with it. I think a good way of kind of showing how nonsense this argument is, and I think I've done this a few times at Speaker's Corner, is simply just to, when we talk about the incarnation and we talk about Trinity, something that is logically reasonable but isn't fully comprehensive, is simply say, look, I'm not going to fully explain something when you yourself don't think that's necessary when talking about God's nature. If they say, look, we can't explain God's body parts, we can't explain how God can be in the lowest heaven and above His throne at the same time, we can't explain those things. We just say that only Allah knows, and it's done in a way that befits His Majesty. We could say, well, we could say the same. There is no reason why the Christian, the Jew, the Hindu, any religion couldn't just copy that same line of thinking. And this is where it kind of shows you the downfall of Islamic polemics, because they don't realize that their own arguments self-destruct their religion as like a desperate way of distracting from any kind of criticism. It's like a never-ending time bomb that they're just trying to delay as long as they can so they can get out and they can live to see another day. But they know full well that with the internet and the rise of criticism, there's no getting around this. Islam either is going to reform, or it's going to have an avalanche of apostasy. And I think that's what's coming. Well, I think it's already happening, but I think it's going to accelerate. Now, I want to point out as well that although it's just a cop-out argument, you can easily refute the point that Shamsi and the Sheikh made, which is that when they say that Allah will only do something that befits His Majesty, that isn't true. And it's very easy and very quick to demonstrate why that's not true. The first thing you need to remember is Allah is the one who sustains all things. The thing that both Christians and Muslims agree on is that every living second, every living moment, every living thing, every non-living thing, every material thing is dependent on its existence because of God's sustained divine provision, His providence. He is the one who is sustaining all things. He may not will things to be a certain way because He allows for free will, but He sustains those things regardless. Now, the problem with that, for Muslims anyway, is if they hold the fact that God, He cannot do anything that doesn't befit His Majesty. So they'll often use examples like, can God be in the toilet? And they'll find that funny, and they'll say, look, why would God be in the toilet? Ha ha ha. But the problem with that kind of thinking is you've now put God into a box, and it's very easy to demonstrate that God isn't in that box. And why? It's simple. There are billions of people in this world, even the majority of people in this world, who do not believe in Allah, who associate things with Allah, or, to be more accurate, have done things in their actions that do not befit Allah. They do not honor and worship Allah. The question you have to ask yourself is, if billions of people in this world are doing that on a day-to-day basis, why is it that Allah is sustaining those actions? Every second, every minute of every moment, Allah is the one who sustains it and permits it and allows it. Now, He doesn't will it and He doesn't encourage it, but He does sustain it, and that's an active act. That's something that God is choosing to do. He doesn't have to do that. In fact, would it not seem more befitting of His Majesty to simply click His fingers and have the whole world disappear into darkness? Get rid of all those people who are blaspheming against Allah. Get rid of all those people who are sinning. Get rid of all, even the Muslims who don't do Fajr prayer properly. Even those who don't do wudu or ablution properly. Those who don't pray at all, that don't go to mosque. Would it not be good to get rid of them? Because they're obviously not honoring Allah. And yet Allah does it anyway. In fact, think of it this way. If you're watching this and you're not a Muslim, then the fact that you exist, and the fact that you're critical of Islam, and therefore blaspheme against Islam, the fact that you're alive is proof in and of itself that Allah does things that do not befit His Majesty. And just like that, everything crumbles down. And you put the Muslim in a position where they have to explain how Allah is sustaining blasphemy. How is that befitting of His Majesty? How is that in any way befitting of His Majesty? You can even take this a step back, and you can say Allah actually created all of those people who would blaspheme against Him. So why did He do that? Creating blasphemers, that's not befitting of Allah's Majesty, and yet He did it. So obviously that argument is wrong. Obviously that argument is a bit silly.
Subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you say no, he has to go through this and that, say no, now you are explaining descending or according to experience, which is based upon the observation of the creation. Because in order for you to explain something, you have to have seen something like it. And we know Allah, laysa kamithlihi shay'. There's nothing like unto Him in His essence, in His names, in His attributes, and in His actions. So when we understand that, and it's the aqidah of the Salaf as-Salih, when we understand that, then we say Allah descends the way befits His Majesty, without resembling Allah to His creation. But when we say the mercy of Allah, this is not the aqidah of the Salaf. Now you are distorting the meaning. You are doing the way of the Yahud. When you start doing tahrif, may Allah protect you and us from that, my brother. So we have to be very careful. And alhamdulillah, we have to read, and I would advise you to read Aqidah al-Wasitiyah.
So this is coming up to the end of this, but he's effectively saying, look, it just works. Allah just descends to the lowest heaven, despite the fact that He's meant to be above the highest heaven on His throne, well, above His throne. So that's obviously a contradiction to anyone who can see that from a neutral position. But again, it's in the way that befits His Majesty. That's just a whole bunch of nonsense. And it's just a distraction, really. And then there's this cop out of, look, you're just trying to associate what you experience to try and understand it. Well, yeah, that's how people reason. So although that might sound like a lot of sort of clever language to kind of make you think, ooh, how do I understand things? Well, really, he's just saying, yeah, you would normally use reason to try and understand these things, but don't use reason in this case because it isn't going to end well. Just accept that it's done in the way that befits Allah's majesty, and yeah, stop asking questions there. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have a bit of a cough at the moment, so I apologize for any coughing in this video. Yeah, and take care, God bless, and I'll see you all soon.